This is January 10th, 2010, and this is Day 9 Daily number 45. We're going to be doing a little bit of ghosty flying versus effort action. Oh my goodness, I'm so excited. Notice that I actually just got done shaving because my girlfriend just got back in town after winter break. This is my nice, smooth face. I'm really happy, and if she had a beard on her face, I'm sure she'd smooth it too. I'm pretty excited. This shirt, though, this is for you guys. I just like looking handsome for my I think 100% male viewer audience. I would be blown away if there was even one girl who's watching right now. But if you're out there, thanks a bunch. Representing my female demographic. So today we're going to actually be doing like the #1 most requested game I've had in a long time, which was ghosty flying versus effort. Which I did not see because for me bedtime is like at 9:30, so I have to get in or else my mom will be mad at me, so I ended up missing these matches. But apparently it ends up being one of the most epic games imaginable. So before I end up getting into that, I need to say that the Team Liquid Round 2 Star League matches were on this morning. I casted them, but Procaster died on me after about 2 hours, which I guess is understandable because there were 1,500 viewers solid for 2 hours. Thanks so much to all of you, including the potentially one female who was watching that as well. But yeah, I'm giving those to TeamLiquid.net, so those will be up eventually. I'm sure it will have edited out all the crashing. But yeah, just figured I'd let everyone know what's going on with that. And you should tune in next weekend because I'll be doing some casting with Friendly Neighborhood Chill. So yeah, that should be quite a lot of fun. For now, though, let's just transition right over to this awesome game because it's a pretty long one, and because my girlfriend just got in town, so I want to go ahead and go pick her up from the airport. So right here is Heartbreak Ridge. This is the new Heartbreak Ridge. So first of all, let's pretend it's the old Heartbreak Ridge and just talk about the ultra simple, straightforward, big aspects about this map. The first one is that we have, a pretty normal natural, and our third base is pretty easy to get. It can be a little tricky to get that, but for the most part, players will always get these 3 bases, but it's the 4th base that's the real issue. In particular, if you're Zerg, the 4th gas is a fairly significant thing to think about. The second thing is this circular dynamic along the middle of the map here. This means that you kind of have to be watching both lanes, especially if you are a non-Zerg player. Terran and Protosses have to be really leery of this because, for instance, let's imagine we're Protoss here and we're pushing out along this way going downward just to try to break into our opponent's natural because, we can't really have too much defense here other than just pure units. But let's say we move down here, but he does have a lot of defense, and he did manage to push Sunks out all the way. The Zerg can actually counterattack along this way and kill our main, or even worse, our 3rd base, sort of restricting us back down to 2-base play. But in addition to that, there's 2 other significant changes. The first one is this mineral natural. This might seem not so big of a deal, but the mineral natural used to be right here, right next to this spoke. The reason this was really dangerous, again, let's pretend we're here, but let's pretend we're Zerg this time. If we're Zerg and we take our natural and we expand here, the way we defend ourselves is by concentrating most of our troops right around this spoke. That way if our opponent does move up this way, we just run down and get high ground advantage. But then what we could do is, in the old Heartbreak Ridge, when the minerals were right here, we'd simply expand here and we would defend this big spoke. So we'd kind of defend this and this. And since we expanded, we could easily put sunken colonies and lurkers here and have a very narrow choke point that would be really difficult to break, and we'd be almost guaranteed this expansion. However, this is real obnoxious when it's all the way back here, because we can put it here, but we can't really control this spoke as easily. More importantly, armies can just waltz right through the middle. This is the second major change, is the fact that this used to be rubble, but now it's an actual path that you can move across. So we do see a lot of players kind of walking up here and, doing very rapid aggression along like this, just by popping in and out of the center. So those are probably going to be the key things to think about. And ghosty flying in particular has been doing a lot of really great late game aggression, a lot of really good late game management, so I'm hoping we get to see some of that this game. And Effort, as you may know, is the really, really good Zerg on CJ. No offense, Savior. And Effort, he really is one of the top 4 Zergs, I want to say right now. It's pretty much Jaedong, Calm, Zero, and Effort are the last bastions of hope for Zerg. I don't want to say last bastions of hope because there's like 6 Zergs in the top 10 of the Kesper ranking, but still the last bastions of hope. So, yeah, I'm pretty excited for this game. So let's go ahead and just jump right into things. And let me turn up the volume. Whoa, that way everyone can hear the screaming going on. Ooh, let's turn up the volume a little bit. And you know what? I'm going to go ahead and close aim. So that way I mean, I am super popular, and all my nerd friends are constantly wanting to hang out with me, the guy with the TV show, so we can play 2v2v2v2s on BGH, but alas, I shall turn it off for you fine gentlemen that I'm wearing the nice blue shirt for. So here's a couple who like watching StarCraft. They're very shy about that, but that guy's a little bit more proud as you see him unable to take his eyes off the screen. So here we have a relatively early pool coming out. Looks like an overpool, because you'll note the Overlord just finished and the pool's close to started. Any sort of early pool I like on this map, or really any two-player maps, for two reasons. First of all, scouting probes come so quickly that they will block your hatchery fairly easily. So for instance, even if you're 12 hatching, you know, they can do something like just straight up build a pylon, and there's not much that you can do about it. I mean, they'll build a pylon, and they'll even get their Nexus out first. So that's one thing, is that it allows you to get this expo up relatively quickly. And the second thing is it does force your opponent to get a forge pretty early on. So, I mean, it's a fairly even trade-off. This is why I like overpooling instead of just 12 pooling. 12 pooling was popular in the ancient days of 2004 and 2005 as a counter to just having two bases on the map. But the problem was that Protoss could still get away with going Nexus Forge Cannon. Fortunately, with the overpool, such is not the case. So immediately, we're not only forcing our opponent to get a little bit early stuff going on there, but we also immediately get map control, assuming you kill the probe that quickly. Normally, you want to keep it alive just a touch longer, but again, Go See Flying's late game management is so good. He can afford to throw a probe here and there. That's a joke, by the way. Don't lose your probes. And here we have the good Wallen. Look at this beautiful Wallen. Beautiful for multiple reasons. First of all, Forge on bottom, Gateway on top. That is the positioning that makes this Ling tight. No Lings can get in here. The only way Lings can go is by going around. So this gets a maximum amount of shot time. I'm a little concerned about this path along here, kind of off the minimap. But the other reason I really like this is the fact that there's a space for units to get out for Protoss. That is one of the key things that a lot of players sort of neglect to think about in a lot of circumstances, is can my units get out easily, or more importantly, can Dragoons get out easily? Because Dragoons are sort of the large unit that will really get in your way. And look at this. Oh, man, I'm going to freak out, man. Make my Scooby noises along with the commentator. Look, Go See Flying. Happy to play one-handed because he's in such a great position. But you see, whoopsie daisies. I always clicked just like a nanosecond. Yep, see, there he is one-handing it, no problem. Right here. Yeah, see, you need to be getting that pylon anyways, so that way you can continue to produce probes. Because your Nexus is a little bit delayed, you can't rely on it for supply quite yet. And also, notice the timing of it. Not only does it block the front, but it also lines up with the food production. And of course, over in Effort's base, he's doing everything as normally as can be. Going straight for the lair, doing the 3-hatch Mutalisk. Into anything, really. Just the 3-hatch Spire. Or excuse me, I said 3-hatch Mutalisk. I intended to say 3-hatch Spire. I would never hate to deceive you guys. But 3-hatch Spire is, the standard opening. I want to briefly say, since everything is fairly normal at this point in time, that you absolutely do not need to open that way every single game. There are many alternatives. You can open up 2-hatch straight into Spire to really force your opponent to make way more Corsairs than he'd ideally want to, and to cannon up in his main earlier than he'd want to. You can open up 4-hatch. You can go open up hatch pool, hatch before the gas. And as a result, you use the Hydralisks to defend against the Corsairs before you end up getting the Spire out to really control the Corsair count. And of course, when you go 4-hatch like that, you have the opportunity to make a few more units, namely a few more drones. So I just wanted to name those two briefly. I have a podcast about that way back when I actually did those audio podcasts. I should probably start those back up again. Do them like Friday when I wake up, but we shall see how my semester goes, because last semester raped me. So I'm hoping that that goes well as can be. Notice what Effort's doing with this. This is, right now what we're seeing is an extension of the usefulness of going for that that overpool first, for that pool on 9 after our Overlord. We can control the scouting so effectively on this map. I do like this choice of Protoss to build the Cybernetics core right up here. I mean, he was kind of forced to because there was only 2 pylons at the time. But still, this is a good place to put it because it's a little bit of an awkward location for the Overlord to try to slip into. And it's generally the most difficult to scout location is right at your natural expansion due to the fact that you can't quite get cannons in the front and you're scared to move your Overlord in the back. So a lot of times if you open up Corsair, you should build your robotics facility there, or if you're going for Fast Templar, you should build your second gateway there, these sorts of things. So we do see that Ghostly Flying does manage to sneak out, and we see everything is as normal as can be from Effort. Getting the Spire, making a bazillion billion groans. But I do like little things like this. A lot of players mess up. I think just about every D+ player actually has this opening down fairly solid, what Effort's doing this 3-hatch style, but it's these little things like, look at this positioning of this Overlord right here. An early Overlord goes to a key position slightly farther away from the base. Future Overlords are going to be right here over this expansion, right there floating over the main for Dark Templar, right here at the 3rd expansion. And little things like this, already sending an Overlord down this way, just to make sure that there's no sort of robotics facility there, to make sure there's no expanding going on there, likely because Zerg will want to be expanding there soon. These are the sorts of things that you consider. And again, other than these very subtle but key aspects of Effort's play, he is doing everything very normally. And likewise, we have Ghostly Flying doing the Corsair opening. Already killed one Overlord we see right there in the Corsairs. And the Probe, horrified, is running home now. And this is actually really good. A lot of times when players are rewatching their replays, they don't consistently note where the Overlords go. I mean, you'll see them in games, and they'll be sending them around and stuff like that. But notice how that Overlord, or that Corsair, sprinted directly towards that Overlord. If you're rewatching one of your own replays, you can load it up, and you can just start kind of keeping a tally. Like, really, honestly, I'm actually going to come to the main camera, because these sorts of things can be really useful. Let's say you've played 10 Zerg vs. Protoss games. Like, you sit down, you have a really long session on Icy Cup. Like, let's say you played over 2 days and you played 20 games and 10 of them were Zerg vs. Protoss, which actually isn't surprising because a lot of players on Icy Cup are Protoss. You should go back, Protoss versus Zerg, which is unusual because not that many Zergs are on Icy Cup. So, let's try that again. So, let's say you played 20 games and 10 of them were against Zerg. You reload the replays up, and you just keep a tally of where their Overlords are, like whether they're actually at the bottom right or at the bottom middle or sort of over one of these center spokes. And as a result, you can start making these really seemingly hackerish decisions just based on, the probabilities that you've seen. Because what you'll actually notice is that Zerg players pretty much always hide their Overlords in the same spots. Not just each player hiding his Overlords in the same spot each game, but like every Zerg player seems to think, oh, I'm so clever, he'll never find it here. And in fact, if you just send a Corsair there, you'll almost always find one. So doing little things like this, and for some of you, I think that might be like, whoa, I never thought of doing that. But you can extend this to other things as well. Just think about, what do I want to do with blank? Like, what do I want to do with my Corsairs? Well, scouting, but I also want to kill some Overlords. How do I maximize the ability to kill Overlords? How do I maximize the ability to scout? Likewise, with scouting, now that we've asked the question, we can answer it the same way. Well, I loaded it up, and I noticed in 80% of games, the Zerg doesn't build his Spire in his main, but actually builds it at his 3rd base. Which is obviously a statistic that's wrong. It's actually the opposite. Players almost never build their Spire in their 3rd base. So if you want to scout, you should really go for the main or the natural first. These sorts of things you can begin to establish over time. And we do see that multiple Corsairs being added on. We see the +1 attack upgrade being upgraded. I highly doubt that is the +1 range upgrade for the Dragoonies. These sorts of push-outs early on as Protoss I like quite a bit. Ooh, Dark Templar coming out, nice. I love these sorts of early pressures with Zealots. Really, you can kind of screw your opponent up a little more than you'd initially anticipate. This is the one exception if your Protoss does end up trying to get a whole bunch of Mutalisks early on. Obviously, the Mutalisking player will be able to hold it off completely effectively. It bothers me a little bit that Effort just went ahead and built this evolution chamber here. You'll notice he's building it here because he was kind of Manor larva-ing himself. I would have preferred if he just scooted the larva over. And then built the evolution chamber. Little things like that. It seems insignificant at the time. You have pretty much solid wall off. But you really want a super solid wall off. There is the Roswell alien, a.k.a. Effort. Yo, Scudgy! And also, another thing that I really like about what Effort's doing is that he didn't rush for Mutalisks. There are some plays that revolve around you getting Mutalisks as fast as possible, but a lot don't. They just rely on the fact that the Mutalisks exist at some point in time. So notice the fact that Effort really didn't force these Mutalisks into existence. Oh man, pretty good damage with the Scourge, not ideal. Thanks to that key number of Corsairs. Once you get 6 Corsairs, you can kill a Scourge in one shot. 6 because you need to do at least 26 damage. to kill a Corsair or a Scourge, because it will immediately heal upon getting damage. But anyways, back to the Mutalisk idea. Notice how the Zerg was very, economically focused. He got a whole bunch of drones early on. He got the Scourge, and waited a little bit, then got the Mutalisks. And I really like that sort of play, because the Mutalisks right now is the first time they're really kind of needed. The Mutalisks are now helping Effort manage his control over the majority of the map and that sort of thing. But no sooner did he need to do that, because notice that Protoss is only just now about getting ready to leave his base. It's not that he, you lost that opportunity as Zerg because he moved out way earlier or something like that. This is very good timing by Effort, and that, I think, is a really uncomfortable thing for, I would probably say that the C to B range players, the idea of if these Mutalisks came out earlier, they'd be weaker, and the fact that Effort waited a little while to get something he could have made makes his build stronger. That's something I think is very, very key. So in a lot of your games, if you're analyzing it and you do an attack and it's not working, try not to think, can I do it earlier? Consider, just briefly, would doing this later be more effective? Ooh, we have the usual sort of run-in. This is doubly effective because we have so many Scourge stockpiled. We're not relying on the timing. We're not relying on the fast Mutalisks. We're relying instead on the fact that we have a lot of Mutalisks. So this is doing tons of damage, and we have some free Templar. Oh, man. Oh, look at him. Evaporating. See, look at it. I love what Ghostly Flying did there. That's Ghostly Flying. You blocked my ability to look at the map. Yeah, but these Corsairs, what he did is he ran to the left possible edge of the map and then went up and then cut back right again. He kind of went like this pattern against the Scourge. Hugging up against that wall is really good, because then you're almost guaranteed for the Zerg units to be clustered, at least marginally so. And now Effort backs up and he begins to make the Hydralisks, but I think he was also able to get a 6th hatchery up at the north base. I'm looking at the mini-map and I'm seeing quite a lot of blue. This is a good little split up by Effort, but, good job by Ghostly Flying to try to follow him down a little bit. But again, since we have a hard time taking a 4th base, what it means to say you'll have a hard time taking a 4th base is that you don't have some sort of cute defensive positioning of it. Like, you don't have a ramp that you can, just burrow 2 lurkers at and put some sunkens at and be fine. Instead, yep, there's the 6th hatch. Instead, you just need a lot of stuff to defend it. So what's nice about this Mutalisk opening is that it got a little bit of extra minerals that was allowed to be spent on that 6th hatchery. So now Effort, by getting all these extra ground units, is able to secure that expansion. Just to repeat that more succinctly, on maps where it's harder to take other expansions, you need to focus on something that is very macro-oriented in order to secure them. So for instance, Python, Protosses will need to do something like get 6 or 7 gateways if he wants to secure his 3rd expansion. He can't do something cute like stick to 4 gateways and rely on some, ramps or high ground positioning, as he would be able to on something like Eye of the Storm, or even Fighting Spirit. So we see a nice little bit of aggression by Effort. This is some potential advantage right here. He's not going for the jugular right here. He's going to do some significant damage, obviously, because he has 6 hatcheries worth of Mutalisks, or excuse me, 6 hatcheries worth of Hydralisks. Most importantly, though, it's expansion at the top. That is the big kick in the butt. So yeah, Ghostly Flying is in fact forcing his opponent to back off a little bit. And notice that again, because the 3rd is a little bit harder to take than usual for Protoss, Protoss is in fact having to make quite a few gateways. We see a whole bunch of gateways morphing in the, or already morphed in the main there. Morph, what am I talking about? This isn't Zerg. Warping in. This is one thing I also like about what Ghostly Flying's doing, is that if you think about it, on a map like this, or something like Python, you need a very strong army in order to defend your 3rd and 4th and 5th expansions. So that doesn't just include getting a lot of unit-producing structures, but also the upgrades. So what I like so much about in this game is that Ghostly Flying is already at +2 attack. Look at that. Incredibly getting that very, very, very quickly. And of course, this is a direct result of him getting the +1 attack upgrade fast early on. But he also, you remember, up here, he tried to do some Dark Templar stuff. He tried to sneak a Dark Templar in here. The Dark Templar was one aspect of his play to put pressure up here, but, the Templar Archives to get the +2 attack upgrade is equally important. Because right now, this army that Ghostly Flying has is much stronger than usual. And look, 3rd upgrade coming out right away. Plan your upgrades. Really, I mean, it's easy to just think, upgrades are good, I'll get them when I can. But, planning them out, just a little extra effort there can go a pretty long way. Because right now, the Zerg doesn't have any carapace upgrades. He's almost certainly going to have his opponent's Zealots dominating his Zerglings for quite some time. And maybe, just maybe, that +1 attack upgrade's done for effort. It would have only just recently been finished. Or maybe it was finished around the time of that attack. He did get that Evo Chamber up, and did go Mutalisks first, so I take that statement back. Pretty good right there, using the Zerglings to pick some stuff off and accidentally walking the Corsairs into the storm. Whoa, back up, little Tempolo. So, notice what Ghostly Flying is doing. Almost all Templar and Dragoons, no Archons, no Dark Archons, very minimal Zealots. This is because that is an anti-Mutalisk composition. There's about 8 Corsairs with +1 attack upgrade. Ghostly Flying doesn't need to get Dark Archons to do any sort of maelstrom to deal with those pesky Mutalisks. He instead is going to go straight up for just having very good air control. And I personally prefer that. Dark Archons make you feel awesome, but I feel like Corsairs are awesomer. You can kill off Overlords, you have a little bit more control over the middle. Notice how we do have quite a lot of blue on the minimap. Ignore this giant blur on the screen, but we do have a pretty significant amount of blue on the minimap, but the Overlords can't really poach forward and keep good eyes on these locations, these two lanes of attack. Oh, and awesome, we just hit 600 viewers. I'm pretty pleased. Recently I've been getting close to 600-700 viewers a night, so I'm hoping to rapidly approach 800 and eventually 10 million. So, yeah, go tell your friends and families, be like, it's really awesome what this guy Day9 is doing. He's totally suave and wears nice collared shirts to the cast because he loves his 100% male demographic so much. And here we have the expansion coming. So again, note that if this were old Heartbreak Ridge, this could have been taken a little bit earlier, because this expansion could have been, scooted over here, giving you better control of this spoke. But either way, same sort of ideas hold, right? We take this expansion, notice there's a lot of blue here. We can't see anything there, but there are almost certainly lurkers at that spoke, just guarding things up. And that allows the Zerg to take that top left expansion as he desires. This is why I think Corsairs are significantly awesomer than any unit in the game, with the exception, of course, of the Siege Tank, because those are like the most imbalanced unit in the game. Some good little control by Ghosty. Whoa! Ooh, yeah, taking him down. I'm curious if Effort actually has the +1 armor upgrade for air. Hopefully we'll end up clicking on an Overlord. Yes, he does have the +1 armor upgrade. That's a pretty common technique we actually see a lot of players do, is to get the +1 carapace upgrade for air super early on. The instant they see any Corsairs, they begin researching the +1 carapace upgrade. Not only because it keeps the Overlords alive, but whenever the Scourge do pop out, the Scourge do pop out, it's no longer 6 hits to take it down. So we have the usual little micro trading going on. Oh, look at that beautiful storm. That storm was wicked bejugular. Some Zealots getting a little bit lost, trying to be brave little souls, but eventually turning back. What I like about the way Ghostly Flying's playing this out is it's very late game oriented. He's just focusing on taking his expansions. A very simple way to do this is to pick a gateway number, like 7, is what we're seeing Ghostly Flying have, and just stick to 7 straight up, and then take this bottom expansion, and then still while on 7, take this middle bottom expansion. And look, +3 attack upgrade makes it very easy to kill Zerg units. You end up killing the Hydralisks in a less hit with your Zealots. You end up killing the Zerglings in a less hit with your Zealots. Incredibly good upgrade to have. And I believe these are the Corsairs moving around up here. I'll have to double check that. I lost track of them when I was pontificating about Protoss' awesome passive play. But really, Protoss is just gearing up to have his half of the map versus his opponent's half of the map. Again, we're starting to see even more so why we, like that Corsair opening, because when we inevitably get Reavers as Ghostly Flying, we will have a much stronger Reaver reinforcement going on there. We can even hope to do a little bit of harass. So we're opening up Corsair early on to help us from Mutalisks, and then at the late game, it helps with our harassment. Again, one of the things that I like in terms of the versatility of the Corsair. And we see a nice little cute drop right here taking things out. Notice that drop could only have happened with a shuttle, so indeed Ghostly Flying should be going for some Reavers in the near future. And I will admit, this is kind of a small attack that Ghostly Flying has here. Just sort of poking in and poking back out. Normally, if you have a 3-gate toss who's going for some sort of power mid-game push, then he will, in fact, have way more units than this. But this is, you know, pretty much what you'd expect from Protoss players trying to focus a little bit more on the defense. Now, notice what Protoss is doing. He's moving up here, but then he's doing a lot of bouncing back and forth between the center because he has all these nice entrances that he can exploit. And this is good by Zerg. Excuse me, I had to do a little bit of yawning because not because the play is boring, but just because I'm so tired after slaving away this morning trying to get my Procaster not to crash, but to no avail. Tisk tisk. Well, that's okay. Again, Team Liquid, the PokerStrategy.com, Team Liquid Star League 2 Round 2 replays, or replay cast, I should say, will be given to Team Liquid in the next day or so they'll be able to upload it where they please, and hopefully all shall be well. Look at this. This is an Arbiter. You don't normally see this unit in this matchup. Uh-oh. Recall. And see, I love this. Look, already having the shuttle prepared. Wouldn't be surprised if there was a Reaver there. But more typically, you'll see Templar loaded up into the shuttle. Just sort of like a guarantee that you get those units. But this is a very, very clever way of playing. You're going to play very passively as Ghostly Flying. But you're going to use these Arbiters in order to spread out along the map. It looks like he's trying to suicide to kill the Hive, but it didn't quite work out. He might get it, unless all these Dragoons evaporate. Wow, that was pretty good. Sorry, I left my mouse pointer on the screen with my enormous yellow sphere. And I think after this, I actually need to go back and reduce the size of that. I just upgraded to the most recent version of Procaster like 45 minutes ago. And I forgot to change the settings for the size of that yellow cursor, so I apologize if it's a little bit overbearing. But again, what I love about Ghostly Flying's play is it's a very timed attack. It's a very smart attack. And Ghostly should be at 3-1 upgrades, plus 3 attack, plus 1 armor. He notes that most Zergs will in fact be spreading out like this, and really, all you need to think about are 2 attack points. Hitting this expansion up here, and hitting this main. That's it. That's really all you gotta focus on if you're doing this sort of recall build. Because if you can just keep Zerg down to these expansions, Protoss will inevitably be able to take this bottom right, and even Protoss I think benefits a little bit more from mineral expansions because it allows them to get things like Reavers and more cannons and that sort of thing. So I think Protoss's play is absolutely ingenious. And look, after that recall, just hanging out, no big deal, no stress. Corsairs here helping to control for drops. If it was a little difficult to do the recalls because of Scourge, obviously the Corsairs would help there as well. And ooh, an Observer getting recalled in there as well. And look at this. You know, this actually never occurred to me. You can use the the Arbiter to take hits from the Spore Colony, keeping this Observer alive a little bit longer. Genius. I love it. And oh, obviously, I completely forgot to mention this, and I don't know why. If you have like 8 Corsairs, if you have 8 Corsairs and Arbiters with cloaking, I mean, obviously, anytime an Overlord appears, you kill it and go back to having this completely cloaked army. Yeah, try to Scourge that. Whoa. That's a little bit sloppy. A Ghostly Flying in shock. Sorry, I left my overbearing yellow circle. The yellow circle of focus. Very, very smart response by Effort, morphing that into a layer right away. A lot of times I even recommend doing that in the process of dying to throw up a layer, but only do that if you have some reinforcements coming and you think it will be close. I mean, right when he drops and he's killing it off, you shouldn't just immediately hit the L button, not knowing if you'll be able to save it or not. And Protoss just trying to continue with his theme of passivity, taking the bottom right, and getting away with just recalling the top left and the mid right. I think Protoss would be at a tremendous lead were he able to take out that top left. And it looks like he wants to... Oh, I forgot Arbiters do damage. Whoopsie daisies. But unfortunately, that plague is pretty non-trivial, I guess is how I'd put it. A fairly non-trivial plague putting the hurt on. Now, I think in terms of unit composition here for Protoss doesn't have to continue making that many Dragoons. He can pretty much make just gas units, Archons, Arbiters, Templar, make a lot of Reavers and Zealots with his remaining minerals and expand. And you don't really need that many more gateways. you need a lot of gateways if you want to break entrenched positions, but you're not really doing that. You're forcing the Zerg to come to you. And Zerg's always at a disadvantage when attacking because you have to burrow the lurkers. Oftentimes you can't burrow them in ideal locations, and consequently you lose. So, oh, I think there's something going on at the top left that the observer is missing. But because I watched the minimap, I'm noticing stuff at the top left. Never storm your own shuttle, but, you know, no big deal. The Hydralisks were, in fact, going to kill it anyways. And you can see the expansion going down at the bottom right. What lovely play going on here. And if you think about it, it's very logical. And it's not extreme in terms of its unorthodoxy. I mean, a lot of times players will try to do some twist on their play, and they'll just sort of, you know, go out of control with it. I mean, a great example is Fantasy versus Zero on what's that map? On Moonglaive recently. We saw a late game transition into mech by Fantasy, and he played it calmly. A lot of players would freak out and try to run everywhere with their vultures and try to, like, be some sort of superhero. But you don't necessarily have to do that. Actually, a lot of times I recommend against doing that because it can be detrimental to your success. So what we're seeing here is just straight up calm and passivity by Ghostly Flying as he patiently waits to recall into everything. This obviously is an excellent exploitation here by the Zerg player. I mean, really, this expansion is very easy to sort of forget about defending, because as Protoss you think, well, I have my main covered here, I have my expansion covered here, but we forget that in Neo Heartbreak Ridge, this little entrance here plays a fairly significant role in terms of movement, and all this stuff happening right here is a direct result of that. So they continue to sort of consume the Zerglings. Now, here's an instance where I think a plague is appropriate. We see a swarm going down, reasonably so. But I say, you know, a plague is appropriate here because so often you'll see players who just plague because they can, especially in Zerg vs. Terran. They have enough for a plague and they shoot it, and whether it succeeds or not is irrelevant because all of a sudden the Terran just kills all their lurkers off and then just goes and kills the Zerg, and the Zerg's like, ah. You know, it's all a result of the plague. Look at this giganto army. See a Dark Archon in there? I would say that Dark Archon is more there for the feedback than for the Maelstrom. Obviously the Maelstrom can't be bad, especially when you have that many Overlords just begging to get hit. Oh, Stasis the Overlords! Stasis, yeah! Oh, I haven't seen this game and that was awesome. Stasising the Overlords. You know, you don't really get to see some BGH tactics too often on the good old low money maps, but always kick-ass to see. For those of you who aren't big BGH players, Stasis rules BGH. It is like the kingpin of any strategy is, well, I'm just going to hang out here, and when he attacks, I'll Stasis him, and then I'll win somehow. And that pretty much holds true 100% of the time. Continuing to be aggressive here. In Zerg's spot, Zerg a lot of times doesn't really want to give up the aggression because these Overlords are holding a lot of juicy, important units. Oh! I think this is a much better position. A lot of people would overreact and restasis, but waiting just a little bit, because now that Dark Archon's there getting ready for the Maelstrom. And Protoss, I believe, is at a slight advantage, not an enormous advantage, though. Zerg really does have a lot of units. That is kind of a lot of Archons, though, and if you can reinforce that with some more Reavers, I think you'll be in good shape. Oh, man, look at those burrow Zerglings getting ready to put the hurt on. But I mean, this is the one issue anytime you do any sort of unorthodox strategy is, for the most part, it's unorthodox because it involves some weirdly timed attack or some weird composition of units. And that means, as a result, you sometimes have slightly less than you ideally would want. Oh, see, he's trying to... Oh, man. Beautiful timing on that Overlord unload. Reaver's trying to do some magic. I don't exactly want to see the first-person view, but I suppose I don't have a choice. Man, that was a beautiful drop by effort. I mean, he swarmed right under his Overlords and was just constantly trying to make sure he could unload. And the good little counterattack going on here. So likewise, if you are in Zerg's position and you're the Protoss, if you're in Zerg's position against a Protoss like Ghostly Flying, I noticed the way that Effort is winning right now. Effort is just pretty much playing normally. He exploited this runaround attack, which I think was a game-winning blow. But really, that's not him exploiting this strategy in particular, but just a good technique to do in Zerg vs. Protoss, to try to move around and attack key vulnerable expansions. We see the Maelstrom going off and doesn't manage to do too much. I do like the idea of this Arbiter play, but I think that this little run in here and a little bit too dry on the Reavers, I think, was what caused Gosi to lose this game, because I think pretty clearly Gosi is going to lose. And oh my god, we hit 700 viewers, I'm so happy. And Gosi Flying is not, so apparently we just sort of have mirror lifestyles going on. And since this game is pretty much coming to a close, I'm just going to go ahead and pause it and come back here to the main screen and unmute it and happily take some questions for just 5 or 10 minutes, because in fact I do need to pick up a girlfriend o' mine. So Dear says moo, fantastic. So Ooga Booga Wooga says, why is it that you stress Gosi's passivity when that's what allowed Effort to maintain map control? Also, even though he was passive, he didn't try to ST... Got cut off his question as usual. But let me answer that first half of the question. You said, but that's what allowed Effort to get map control. Well, I mean, it's kind of... It's not exactly what caused Effort to get any control. I mean, really, the issue was that Gosi Flying wasn't defending this at all. And whether you're being aggressive or passive, this is, a key area you need to defend, because attacks can wander up this side. What I like about the passivity is that there were some games of Violet that I watched played on this map where Violet just conquered his half of the map like this, and was fairly passive, and the Zerg up here was trying constantly to bash into the Protosses anywhere, but really couldn't because there were so many speed shuttles and Reavers. And the Zerg eventually was forced to take this expansion, but the Protoss did a good job of controlling it. Now, if you're going for Arbiters, you open that up a little bit. You can not only defend all of your expansions and control the center, but you can also potentially kill off stuff in the main and at the top left. So I think that that's what I loved so much, is that this passivity had a plan. This passivity was allowing him to take these expansions more quickly than normal, and then force the Zerg to move to positions that were away from these expansions with the recalls. Because, I mean, if you just look right here, there's an expansion here and eventually one here, but if you're recalling here and here, the Zerg units are either going this way or they're going this way. And whether you're here or here, you're getting farther away from there. I think that there were just a few slight kinks in the way Gosi Flying was executing this. I think that he somehow didn't quite get enough units in the mid-game. In particular, I think he was a little bit low on the Reavers, which is really a pretty essential late-game thing that you'll need to get. Because, I mean, the one sacrifice I think that Gosi Flying was making is he was allowing his opponent to tech fairly uninhibitedly. So, that's the one thing that I would sort of stress there, is that I loved his passivity, because it's really interesting to see passive plays with sort of successful techniques being employed in order to make them work. So that was one thing I liked quite a bit. Let's see. Rodrigo says, how do you weight whether to play passive like flying or aggressive? Map dependent? What you like, your race? I mean, it really depends kind of on your strategy. Terran generally has the opportunity to choose to be the aggressor or choose to be the passive person. Protoss is generally forced to be a little bit more aggressive, especially against Zergs and that sort of thing. But really, I wouldn't think of it as, should I be aggressive, should I be passive? I mean, just pick a strategy and say, what would make this work? And if you're interested in using an experimental unit, such as an Arbiter, you need to say, what would make this Arbiter work? Or, if you're doing a Dark Archon, what would make this Dark Archon work? A lot of times people tend to think the other way. They tend to go, well, I'm playing normally, and I can't win in this situation. Do I need to use a weird unit? And I mean, what we're seeing here is the Arbiter is just a tool that Gosi Flying is using. Now, if you're going Arbiter tech like that, how do you do it successfully? Well, if you're being super aggressive and up in Zerg's face, you need to have almost all your money devoted to that sort of push. So if you went Arbiters, you'd have a weaker push. But if you back off a little bit from pushing and expand, you do have a secure expansion, and you're still getting these Arbiters. And oh hey, wait a minute, now I can recall everywhere and still defend my expansions. Yeah, this is starting to add up. So that's one thing that I would sort of emphasize, is that, I mean, don't be afraid to mess around. A lot of times I would suggest, if you're going to mess around on Icy Cup against strangers, make sure you have a nice established plan, sort of linking things up. What I prefer to do, though, is to get a friend and say, hey, I'm thinking about this really weird strategy, and I want you to do the following against me. So, let's say I'm playing a Protoss versus Terran or something like that. I want to say, you know what, I'm going to try this weird double expand build. Just play an early fast expand style as Terran. And my Terran will go, okay, and I'll do it, and it'll work really well. And I'm like, okay, clearly I'm in a good spot here. Now what I want you to do is I want you to instead try to be really aggressive against me. And then he's really aggressive against me, and I lose really badly. And I'm like, okay, now I'm starting to see the adjustments I need to begin making. So that's why I like doing it with a friend, is because you can kind of tell him what to do. Just as long as you make sure you know what you're practicing. This is a brilliant question by Wubbles. He says, what can one take from a match that doesn't include your race? I think that the biggest thing to think about is how these things are linking up. There's a lot of consistent themes across all races, like attacking and expanding at the same time. Trying to see ways in which each race is securing their expansions. Because, for instance, a Terran player who might be watching this game, it's not as useful to be like, oh, look, Arbiters. Yeah, awesome. But what might be useful to think is, oh my god, there's a strategy that Protoss is employing where Protoss is just trying to stop this expansion and try to put pressure on the main. Maybe as Terran against a Protoss, I could focus on taking these bases and just kill off my opponent here and here. Or in particular, just kill my opponent here. This is actually something that I've seen in some Terran versus Zergs on this map, where the Terran focuses on taking this half, controlling the middle with a bunch of Medic Marine, and then actually you can land a Ghost in these little cracks, and the Terran would nuke up there. I saw that in actually 2 games, and that was really cool to watch. So that's what I would take, is just sort of these broad overarching ideas and thinking, how can I exploit that with my race? Also just little things like the timings that are linking up together, like, oh look, he's attacking right when the +1 attack upgrade's coming up. Have I been thinking properly how to time my +1 attack upgrades with my race? These sorts of things. There was one more thing I wanted to say, and I can't remember it, so I'll just ask another question. KBBBB says, what was the cool Egyptian-sounding song at the beginning? I'm hoping this is the one. Oh, this song is so good. This is Rubicon by Blue Tech. Oh, let's just rock out to that for just 2 seconds. Ooh, alright, sweet. That was good. I was into that. That was good for my neck. Stu Down says, what would have been a best way for effort to get rid of the Corsairs that were owning his overlords? Really, Scourge is the right answer, but once he gets 8 or 9, the answer is lots of stuff, You can throw down some spore colonies, but when you're this spread out, if you just look at this map, you're all over the place. You just kind of need a lot of stuff. The correct way to think about it is less of, how do I stop it from owning my overlords? You think, he spent all this money on Corsairs to kill my overlords. How can I hit him somewhere else? And a lot of times the obvious answers are, well, I can kill his expansion with Zerglings a little bit more effectively because he doesn't have as many units. I can push with Hydras a little bit earlier, and there's not much he can do about it, thereby delaying his expansion. I'll lose a handful of units, but a handful of overlords. But I think it's an appropriate trade-off that you end up making. So Treehugger says, if Ghosty Flying had a Reaver and a few more cannons at his third, does Flying win? I think that Flying may have had a chance to win, but that's the thing to consider with these unorthodox strategies. If you really just think about, here's something useful for any of you who really want to get good at StarCraft 2, which, given the fact that you're 100% male StarCraft players, 100% of you will want to be doing this. Whenever you're looking at a new strategy, which would either be an unorthodox thing like this in StarCraft, or really any strategy you see in StarCraft 2, it's very easy to think of things in terms of, does that win it or lose it? So for instance, when I was really bad, I'd be like, oh man, I lost to that Protoss who early expanded. And this is way back when no Protoss is early expanded. I would be like, maybe if I'd gotten drop, and I'd gotten some slow lurkers, I could slow drop the lurkers into his main, and I would have killed him off with his expansion. So do I win it or lose it there? And, you know, I would try it out, and I thought of things in terms of this, like, win it or lose it. And I'm sure Tree Hugger doesn't mean, like, oh, is it obvious that he wins or obvious that he loses? He's just saying, you know, like, how much of an advantage was Ghostly Flying going to be at? And especially with unorthodox strategies, you have this tendency to feel like your unorthodoxy should either rape your opponent or you should get raped. I mean, the classic example is Medic Marine against Protoss. Like, oh my god, if I can pull it off right, I'm going to feel awesome. You know, if I do like people call it Deep Six, which is kind of a goofy name. If I do the Deep Six Medic Marine push against Protoss and I win, I really rape them. And if I lose, then I'm going to lose horribly because there's going to be Storm and Reavers. But the fact of the matter is, any strategy, orthodox, unorthodox, most of the time it's going to be pretty close to even. So I think if Ghostly Flying held that expansion, he would have been in a pretty even fight. There are still goals of his Arbiter play. He needs to be a little more aggressive towards the main, I think, is probably the biggest target because a lot of key tech units are there. A lot of key tech structures are there, excuse me. And also by putting pressure on the main, he's further defending that bottom right 4th gas expansion for himself. But, I mean, really, truly, I think that anytime you do any sort of weird unorthodox strategy, you should pretend that you don't know what normalcy is. You should ignore the status quo and try to just play it as well as possible. So, I mean, if we look at that 3rd base, it really doesn't matter if Ghostly Flying is going Arbiter or if he's going Standard. Losing that bottom left 3rd gas is a big fucking deal, and you just don't want that to happen. So yeah, I hope I answered that question. What am I talking about? I answered the shit out of it. So we only have time for one more question. So Firepower Johan says, due to Swarm Drop's danger, is it wise to keep at least one High Templar in each base? I think that what's a little bit more effective, I mean, I think keeping a High Templar in each base is prudent, but a lot of times it's a little dangerous because if you have like 5 bases eventually, and that's 5 Templar, and you just kind of had a big battle and you only have like 8 Templar total, I mean, you kind of want the rest of your Templar involved in the fight. But what's being pointed out, though, is absolutely undeniably correct, that these Swarm Drops can be extremely deadly. So that's why I like the Reavers quite a bit. Once you get Reavers in the late game, like, immediately get Shuttle Speed. Like, that should be the first thing you do, is get Shuttle Speed, and right after that, get Reaver Damage upgrade. And then if you're feeling real fancy, you can get Reaver Capacity upgrade. But by doing this, by getting the Reavers, you can be in a lot more places at once and have the potential for harassment. So, for instance, if you just had 4 Reavers, not only does this allow you to have an incredibly huge mid-game push, should you choose to make it with the Reavers, but you also get the opportunity to harass, and you have the opportunity to get 4 Reavers anywhere you want to at once. You just need to make sure you have good positioning with your Corsairs to spot everything. And that really is going to wrap it up right now. I'm going to go ahead and conclude this and go pick up my little girly girl. And thanks so much, everyone, for watching. Tomorrow we'll be doing Day 9 Daily number 46, which is great news because that means that I'm almost at number 50, which would be quite an achievement. And I'm going to have a little bit of schedule changes going on because I have a class on Monday that's 6 to 9 p.m., so I'll be doing Day 9 dailies at 10 p.m. on Mondays and 9 p.m. on Wednesdays, which is kind of funky. But this is the thing that all of you should note, that in my entire time doing these 50 episodes, I have never once been late. Never been late. Only once did I potentially have technical difficulties, but I have never been late for you guys. That's why I wear the collared shirt. Oh, yes. That was fantastic. So, wait is telling me to wait because he really wants one question. He really wants one, but if it's related to the game, I unfortunately will be unable to answer it. But I'm just hanging out here because I think it's important. And he wants me to wait. He's asked me something about my girlfriend. Oh, well, the answer is I gotta go pick her up. All right, peace out, everyone. I'm really glad I got to take that final question. Thank you much to my 100% male demographic and potentially one girl out there. Thanks so much, everyone, and cheers!